When is the ideal time to water? Well, in this video, we're going to get into it. You're here with Mark Batwell on Perfect Gardens TV. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook. We have the $2.99 membership, and if you need a little more one-on-one directly with me, we have the VIP link down below in the description. Let's go ahead and get into the video, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to be walking around showing you the garden as I'm talking about when is the ideal time to water, because over the last decade, now actually, man, how time flies, I have my philosophy around watering really has adjusted, especially watering from indoor to watering outdoor. When is the ideal time to water? All these different things, and also really incorporating also the knowledge that I've been obtaining around temperature and the law of minimum and law of tolerance. I also just shot a video with Mr. Groa talking about everything I'm about to talk about in much more depth. Make sure to go check out the video. So just a quick answer, just to answer the question, the ideal time to water is really to keep your plants in an environment where they can continue to do enzymatic production. So that's the ideal time to water. And when your enzymatic production begins to stop or decrease, that's when you begin to really have a major problem. So what do I mean? And what is the ideal time for enzymatic production? Or what's the ideal range for, let's just talk about temperature. Well, for temperature, the ideal range is between 76 and 83 degrees, right? And what do I know about ambient air versus leaf temperature? Well, throughout the years, I've realized more often than not, there's about a 3 to 4 degree difference. So if the ambient air is 86 degrees, the leaf temperature is 83 degrees. I've also learned over the years that water stops flowing up the xylem at also roughly around 86 degrees. That's actually when calcium begins to get a little heavier because it collects an additional electron. When that happens, calcium actually begins to settle back down on the lower part of the plant, and during that time, most plants itself will begin to rob itself of phosphorus, so it can continue with its ATP production, adenosine triphosphate. So how do all these things play a part? Because I don't just want to rattle these things off trying to sound smart, right? That's not what I'm trying to do at all. What I am trying to do is all these different things play a part in enzymatic production. So besides just temperature, what else is needed for enzymatic production? Well, you need bacteria, you need water, and through bacteria and water and minerals, your bacteria can actually produce the enzyme cofactors that all enzymes need basically to complete to become an enzyme. So how does this also play an effect in the growing media I've been using with using pit moss? Because pit moss is fibrous little papers, and some of the things I've really mentally comprehended, why does biodynamics and using dry amendments not always really work ideally in your garden? Well, I've come to the realization why it doesn't, and it doesn't because a lot of times we're using growing media like peat moss or cocoa fibers or whatever is on the meat, and those are the two primary ones that are being used in the industry nowadays. But the main reasons is because they have like different fibrous materials. So when you put the dry amendments in there, the dry amendments actually, because of the law of density, they actually begin to settle to the bottom of the pot or whatever you're using. An additional thing you need for enzymatic production is you need time, specifically 24 hours. So you need the bacteria, the minerals to stay in the same spot undisturbed for 24 hours so that they can complete their full enzymatic production. And if you disturb the soil, or you forget to water, or your temperature, let's say, gets really hot in the hundreds, well, that enzymatic production stops. And wherever they were at during that point, they basically have to kind of restart it up again, kind of get over their stress and restart again. And what happens is they end up skipping out on 12, like whatever point the plant enters stress, it ends up missing out on that other half of the cycle enzymatic production for that day. So with pit moss being in the growing environment, and I know even me living in Longmont, Colorado, I live in a mile high, so water evaporates really quickly. and it gets in the 90s right now, and we're in July already. It's going to get into the hundreds soon. Some of the big major things that I have to do to have like just an ideal environment for photosynthesis is I have to know specifically when to water, because when you use pit moss is always in the growing environment. So that's what I actually really love about pit moss. To know I'll come out here 11 o'clock in the afternoon and I'll put my finger in the soil and there's still water in the soil. So I've actually really have had to change my watering philosophy, because normally I water to get water in the soil, so that there is water in the soil. That's why I'm watering. That's why I'll get out there early in the morning and water, so that the water has time to possibly break up any surface tension and penetrate that soil and get deep into that water. And that's normally why have been watering in the past. Now, because there's water in the environment and I know that there's water in the environment, it allows me to come out and actually water at a different time of the day. As the soil starts to creep in the 90s, I'm actually coming out here and watering maybe when it's like 82 degrees, right? So because the water is coming out of the water hose, who knows, maybe 60 degrees. So now I have a water temperature in my root system, let's say that's around 60 degrees, and I have an ambient temperature that's 82, that's going to get up into the 90s. Well, by watering into that to soil at a cooler temperature and it taking up that cooler water throughout the xylem versus water that's it's been warming up with the day already, in a sense, it now drops the overall, not just the temperature in my actual pot and the rhizosphere, but it also drops the overall temperature in the whole plant, because now the water traveling up the xylem is cooler, right? And so even if it gets above 90, it's still taking up cooler water down below, which is allowing for enzymatic production to still continue to keep happening, even if the ambient temperature is 92 degrees, up until the point where the cooler water evens out in temperature. And then probably enzymatic production, photosynthesis probably stops maybe for an hour or two, depending on how long and how hot it was throughout the day. And then at that point, I might just use my shade cloth over here and throw it over to continue to keep going with the garden. And so the enzymatic production continues to start, or it continues to keep going. So like I said, kind of when is and I'm showing you my whole garden because you can see, I want you to see how healthy the plants look, right? This has been my philosophy around watering for the last couple weeks. And I'm showing you these things because I want you to kind of make your judgment, like, does this guy, this is my second vegetable garden. I'm not trying to give advice. What I'm trying to really do is just share what I know, what I've learned, and how I'm applying it this year, and how it's really has altered my watering style or philosophy. And watering is a big deal. If you go back to my channel, I probably have 10 or 15 videos just around water. I am always, obviously, me, pushing Drops of Balance and Organic Shield and EM1, and these are the reasons why. I do a weekly foliar spray with EM1 and Drops of Balance and Organic Shield, and then I feed my plants every day with this very simple siphon system that pulls out Drops of Balance, and Drops of Balance immediately cleans the chlorine and chloramines out of the water, which is the main detriment to bacteria. And I'm using tap water, so there's chlorine and chloramines and whatever else is coming out of this tap water. And then it also siphons out the bacteria, and the bacteria on this one, the activated bacteria. And this right here, the system's good for 1,000 gallons of nutrients. Like, I find that to be absolutely amazing. I was able to create over a gallon of activated bacteria off of 6 ounces of EM1, which we have another video talking about that. Anyway, so I come out here every day. I water roughly when it's around 82, 83 degrees. And sometimes I might not water. Sometimes it might get up to 80. And then look, like right here, it's all cloudy. I'm going to check the weather, obviously, today. But because it's super cloudy, I came out here, look at the pots. They're wet, they're moist, they're cool. Enzymatic protection's happening. There might not be a reason. And look at this over here too. I'm measuring my flow, my water. So far I've used 425 gallons in my garden. growing about 200 different plants overall and about 35 plus varieties. And you can see the green, see everything producing. My dry amendment mix was a 3-4-2, and about once every 10 days or so, I give them a liquid nutrient feed of the grass roots just in case. But that's all bone meal, blood meal. I'm just, just in case, adding a little bit back to the soil. Some of my larger plants, I did give a little bit more 4-4-4 dry amendment. I did a top feed, a top dress. But kind of going back to it, when is the ideal time to water? Well, now that I'm using pit moss in my growing media, now that I'm no longer watering to get water into the environment because I know water is going to be there, I'm actually now watering more when it's starting to get a little too warm. I'm not worrying about breaking surface tension anymore because, like I said, there's always water in the growing media. Now I'm actually watering to maximize my enzymatic production for my outdoor growing. I'm really looking forward to using pit moss for an indoor growing situation because obviously it's going to slightly adjust my philosophy. Right now my mix is about 5% pit moss, and I'm definitely noticing as the plants are getting bigger, they're taking up a lot more water. So it makes me think maybe I should have started with a 7 or to up to 10% mixture of pit moss in my growing media. Anyways, thank you so much. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great grow, everyone.
I just like staying away from especially bat guanos because a lot of it's sourced unethically and has heavy metals, and there's some stuff you want to stay away from there.
So have you ever heard that island where they made like $1 billion or $100 billion off of seabird guano, and they mined the whole island, right? Then the whole island now is impoverished. Before that,